My sister, 33F, assaulted me, 30M, and my wife, 28F. So to give you a little bit of a background my entire life, my parents have treated me and my sister differently. My sister's 3 years older than me. She's better at her job. She has more degrees. She was a Division I athlete, and in all respects is their golden child. On the other hand, I have struggled with anxiety and depression, haven't quite found my thing when it comes to my job, and had some problems with substance abuse in the past. My parents never fail to remind me of, and my mom actively says and tells her friends that I am their problem child. My entire life, my sister would always tell me that my parents loved her more, both literally and metaphorically. For example, if my sister threatened to quit soccer, my dad would beg her not to, and she would tell me that often. So in an effort to feel like I was valued the same as her, I would threaten to quit soccer at times. My dad would ignore me and say, "Go ahead and quit. I'll have more time to coach your sister." He never cared. I felt like my dad pushed my sister to be the best version of herself, but yet actively encouraged me to quit soccer and not pursue it at the collegiate level. He sat me down once and told me he didn't want me to pursue soccer in college. So I didn't. Something I still regret to this day, but didn't pursue because I thought my parents didn't want me to. At first, I thought it was because my sister started to hate soccer after playing in college and that he was looking out for me. I now see it was because he didn't care to push me and encourage me to follow my dreams and be successful, and to actively encourage me to not try to be the best version of myself. I always thought I held resentment and jealousy for not living up to my dad and sister's Division I soccer legacy, and when I was in college could never verbalize or even understand why I felt so angry toward him about it. I now realize it's because it's something I wanted badly and was basically told not to pursue by the one person I thought believed in me to do so. I was good enough to play but didn't have the same support and desire from my parents as my sister did. Fast forward to adulthood. As weird as this may sound, I believe that my sister is craving for attention from my parents because she doesn't have kids. Although I've struggled professionally, I've had profound success with my personal life, and I've created a beautiful family. I met my wife 8 years ago while we both worked for a gym. We dated for 5 years and have now been married for 2 years. We have two beautiful children, a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. Since my kids have been born, I expected my parents to want to be a part of their lives actively. Unfortunately, they haven't really made an effort to be actively a part of our lives, but in the same time, they've gone on multiple vacations with my sister. They consistently hang out with her on the weekends. If I want to see my parents, and I want my kids to see my parents, we have to drive an hour and a half rather than them coming to us, even though we have a harder time with two young kids. Now that you have a background, anytime I've tried to bring this up to my mom and dad, they've flipped the script on me and said, "This is in your head. This is sad. You should get help and talk to someone." They've never once taken accountability for the actions that they have displayed and have always flipped it on me and gaslighted and manipulated me to believe it was in my head. I've never talked to anybody about this besides my mom and dad, and I've constantly been reminded from friends, family, and acquaintances that my sister is treated, for lack of better words, better than me. So this weekend, while at my parents' house, my dad and my sister began talking to me about sharing my emotions with them more. The conversation started off good. It was lighthearted and encouraging, and I finally felt like they were hearing me and listening to the things that I had to say, mostly encouraging me about work and encouraging me about my family, and that I'm a good dad and that I will find what I want to do professionally. After about an hour of talking, the conversation took a turn where my sister told me that I compare myself to others too much. She tried to say that I compare myself to her a lot, and that isn't fair. So I began to start to tell them the way that I felt and that I felt like they favored her, and she encouraged them to favor her more and actively tried to cut me out of things. They've been on multiple vacations, as I've said before, and never invited me or asked me if I wanted to come. They've been multiple dinners and have never invited me or asked me if my family wants to come, and my sister does everything she can to be down the shore every single weekend and take up all of their time so that they can't spend time with me and my family. The Super Bowl was 2 months ago. I actively saw text messages between my mom and my sister where my sister tried to cut me and my family out of the plans so that they could go drinking at a bar rather than hang out with me and my kids and my wife at the house. She actively encouraged me to make new plans. and to my mom expressed severe disappointment that me and my kids and wife were coming down the shore for the Super Bowl. That is just one of many things that she has actively tried to do to cut me and my family out. She doesn't have any kids, and I think when I had kids 3 years ago and started to get a little bit more attention from my mom and dad, she mentally couldn't handle it, and something deep down inside made her try to be at the forefront and try to take up their attention. So it wasn't all on me. Once she told me that I compare myself to her, I started to share my feelings that I just stated on the matter, and within 1 minute, no lie and no exaggeration, the conversation that started as lighthearted and encouraging turns to anger and vitriol. My sister began throwing things at me, calling me a lying POS, and then that quickly turned to hitting me and pushing me. I tried to cover up. I tried to defend myself and push her off, which then made my dad decide that he needed to hold me back, even though I was the one being attacked just because I'm a man and she's a woman. My wife heard the commotion from inside and came running in to break it up. She pleaded with my sister to stop hitting me as my dad had me pinned to the wall, which then made my sister turn her anger on my wife and throw her to the ground and start to beat her. Once the fight was finally over me and my wife gathered our things to put into the car, we were not going to keep my kids around that situation, and my wife made it known that she did not feel safe with them there. My mom, dad, sister, and her husband, not sure why, all got angry at my wife, saying she felt unsafe. As my wife brought our things to the car, my sister quickly started to attack my wife again while I was inside, and I was unaware what was going on as I was gathering my things. My sister came inside and laughed in my face and said, "You should go get your wife. I just beat her ass in the parking lot," as she laughed maniacally. When we walked outside to leave, the police showed up. One of the neighbors must have called with all the commotion. They took one look at my wife and saw the damage that was on both of our faces. The lump on my wife's head from being banged into the car multiple times by my sister, and they immediately moved to arrest my sister. This is where I will never talk to my mom and dad again. At that point, the only thing they cared about was who called the police and whose fault it was that my sister got arrested. I told the cops that I didn't want to press charges, and so did my wife. But in a domestic violence case, the police automatically pressed charges against the assailant. She was going to get arrested for what she did to us, whether we wanted to press charges or not. On our drive home, not even 10 minutes into the drive, my mom and dad began to call us and ask us if we were the ones that called the police. They were not concerned about the violent, vicious attack that we had just undergone, and all they cared about was that their precious golden child was in jail, and they were worried that she would lose her license for her job and her life would be over. They had no concern over my health or my wife's health, and they even went as far as to threaten us if they ever found out if we were the ones that called the police. They even framed the situation to blame my wife because she said she didn't feel safe with my kids around my sister after she viciously beat us, and blamed getting beat up again and having her head smashed into the car repeatedly on our words. No words, no matter how awful they were, would have warranted that, especially not the ones my wife said. My wife and I went to the hospital yesterday where we were urged to press charges. The police called us again. They urged us to press charges. My wife has a severe concussion and severe neck damage. She may never be the same again, and my family will definitely never be the same again. The entire situation encapsulated my parents' infatuation with my sister and showed that that's the only person that they actually care about between my sister and myself. Their only concern was that their precious golden child was arrested and had no concern over the mother of their grandchildren. So I have no family now. Besides my own, my kids will grow up with no grandparents on their father's side and only a grandmother on their mother's side. They'll never know their aunt or their uncle, and I will never speak to my family again. I thought over and over. I made up things in my head about the way that my parents treated me growing up and into adulthood. But it's brought to my attention by multiple different people who I've never spoken to about the situation, and their actions from this weekend have just cemented that thought into my head. I'm finally free from the manipulation, gaslighting, and mental abuse that I've been undergoing my entire life. For some reason, though, I feel sad. I could never treat my kids the way my mom and dad have treated me, and I would never hurt my sister or her husband the way she hurt me and my wife, and then laughed about it in front of both of my kids that she beat up their mother. I'm disgusted and angry and feel more alone than I ever have in my life. IDC about anything they can say to me and won't listen to any of their manipulation, lies, story twisting, and fake narratives. There is no conversation to be had. Yesterday was their one day to show me they cared. They didn't reach out to check on us, didn't ask how we are doing, or apologize for their daughter's actions. They don't care and have made themselves the victim because my sister was arrested. I still don't know if I went to press charges, but I'm starting to lean toward it and lean toward a lawsuit against both them and my sister. IDK what to do, but I know my family is ruined forever.